The envelope lay on the table, thick with papers that smelled of old ink. My son Daniel leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Sign it, Dad. Friday, 10 a.m. The lawyer expects it." His hand pushed the pen toward me, the metal clip scratching the wood. I looked at him, but he never raised his eyes. The words clung to the air like smoke I couldn't clear. My chest tightened, as if the room had shrunk around me. Outside, I heard the clock tower strike 9, each chime pulling me closer to the hour he had set. My mouth felt dry, my tongue heavy, and yet I managed to whisper, "Why such rush, Daniel?" He didn't answer. He only tapped the envelope once, his knuckles pale, his jaw set. I thought of the house. 40 years of savings, sweat, nights without sleep to pay each brick. The smell of damp wood from the beams always reminded me of winters when I patched the roof myself. He wanted me to sign it over just like that, as if all those sacrifices were dust. What would happen if I refused? Would he still call me father or only intruder? I tried to read the words, but my eyes blurred. The letters seemed to swim like ants running across the page. He stood there, breathing hard, his cologne sharp, suffocating, as if to mark his territory. The room felt smaller than ever, my back pressed to the chair. I wondered, how much time did I have before the lawyer called? "Dad, don't make this harder than it is," he said finally. The words cut, simple and cold. My heart clenched because they sounded rehearsed, like lines prepared before the curtain rose. I looked at the pen again, its tip glinting under the light, a weapon as much as a tool. Could I hold it? Could I sign away everything? The kitchen smelled faintly of burnt bread, a reminder of breakfast left behind. I clung to that scent, something ordinary, while Daniel hovered like a shadow. My throat ached as I swallowed the silence. "If I wait until Friday?" I asked. He flinched, and for the first time, his eyes met mine, hard, unblinking, almost daring me. I thought of Anna, my granddaughter, laughing in the yard with the old swing. Would she lose that yard if I signed? Would she blame me when the garden turned into concrete? The thought stabbed deeper than his words. The house wasn't just walls. It was birthdays, Christmas Eves, promises I made to myself when their mother died. The envelope made a faint crackle as I pushed it aside. His jaw tightened and a muscle twitched under his eye. I felt the air shift, heavy with threat. He would not let me escape this. Yet inside me, a question burned. If I delayed, what might surface before Friday? The chair creaked as I leaned back, buying seconds. He mistook it for weakness, stepping closer. His shadow fell across the table, swallowing the light. For a moment, I almost laughed at the cruelty. My son, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, now pressing me into a corner like a stranger. I remembered nights working double shifts, my hands cracked, skin raw. Every coin I saved, every meal I skipped, all for his studies, and here he was, waving a pen like a knife. Did he ever recall those nights? Or did gratitude rot as quickly as bread forgotten on the counter? The phone on the wall buzzed once, startling us both. Its ring was shrill, piercing, like an alarm bell. He froze, then said quickly, "Don't answer." His voice cracked, too sharp, revealing fear beneath. My heart leapt. Who would call at this hour? What truth hid in that interruption? I stared at the envelope again. The edges were frayed, as if too many hands had touched it. Whose fingerprints marked my life now? A lawyer? His wife? The thought sickened me, bile rising in my throat. The smell of cold coffee nearby turned bitter as I breathed it in. I wanted to stand, to take the envelope and burn it, but my legs felt heavy, nailed to the floor. "Friday, 10 a.m., he repeated, slower this time, as though stamping the words into my skin. My pulse pounded. Why that hour? What awaited me, or him, at the lawyer's table? The light above flickered, buzzing faintly. He noticed, his eyes darting up, annoyed. That small gesture gave me a moment, a breath. I thought, every deadline has a crack, every wall a loose brick. If I found it before Friday, maybe I could stop this fall. He grabbed the pen again, thrusting it closer. "Just sign, Dad. Do it now." His voice trembled, half command, half plea. And yet, his eyes betrayed him. Behind the hardness, a flicker of desperation. What was he hiding that made him rush like this? I clenched the chair's armrest, my nails biting into wood. My mind raced. To sign meant losing everything I built. To refuse meant war under my roof. But to delay, yes, to delay might buy the truth I needed. Still, how long could I stall before his anger boiled over? He paced the kitchen once, his shoes tapping sharp against the tiles. Each step echoed like a clock counting down. I thought of soldiers marching, of time closing in. "You don't understand what's at stake," he muttered, but he didn't explain. He never explained. Why not? The window rattled in its frame as wind pushed against it. The sound chilled me, a warning. The house itself seemed to ask, "Will you protect me or surrender me?" My breath fogged the glass as I turned toward it. Daniel mistook my silence for surrender. He smiled faintly, cruelly. "Dad, once it's signed, all problems are gone," he said. The lie was naked. Problems don't vanish. They change hands. Whose hands would hold them next? His, the lawyer's, or Anna's, when she grew old enough to learn her father's betrayal? The thought burned me alive. The envelope shifted in a draft, a soft rustle like whispers. I shivered, remembering nights when voices of the past filled the halls. Her laughter, her lullabies. His mother's presence lived here, even if unseen. Could I let Daniel erase that too? My jaw clenched with rage. I reached for the envelope, slowly making him think I was yielding. His breath quickened, greedy, expectant. But my fingers paused. I traced the edge, rough and sharp, and I whispered, "Not yet." His face darkened instantly. "You'll regret this," he hissed. The air grew colder. The clock struck 10, each bell ringing heavy through the room. He flinched at the sound, as if it mocked his own deadline. I saw sweat bead at his temple, despite his hard face. He was hiding something, I knew it. The question was, what? I held the envelope against my chest, feeling its weight, its threat. My heart beat so hard I thought it might tear free. This was no paper. This was a blade pressed to my throat. The house, my past, my name, all at risk by a signature. Could I truly protect them? The silence stretched, thick as stone. Daniel stared, his fists clenched. My body ached with fear, but a small flame of defiance lit within me. I would not sign tonight. But could I hold my ground until Friday? The answer lay hidden, waiting to strike. And then came 3 knocks at the door, firm and slow. Daniel froze, eyes wide, face pale. Whoever stood outside knew something, and whatever truth they carried, it could break us both. The knocks echoed through the hallway, steady and unhurried. Daniel's face tightened, and for a moment he seemed smaller than before. He whispered, "Don't open it." His tone was sharp, urgent, like a cornered animal. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, the cold metal sending a chill up my arm. What could be waiting outside at this hour? I pulled the door, and the hinges groaned in protest. A man stood there, holding a brown folder against his chest. His coat smelled faintly of wet wool, as if he had walked through rain. He looked past me, his eyes falling directly on Daniel. The silence was unbearable, heavy with secrets. Daniel stepped forward, blocking my view, his shoulders stiff. "Wrong house," he snapped. The stranger didn't move. He just held the folder tighter, the paper inside shifting with a dry rustle. My heart pounded. Why would a stranger come at night with papers in hand? What did Daniel want to hide? "Sir," the man said softly, his voice gravelly, like someone who had spoken too much in smoke-filled rooms. "This is for you." He looked at me, not Daniel. He extended the folder, and for a moment I froze. The folder was thick, its edge frayed, like it had passed through too many hands. Daniel slammed the door halfway shut, blocking the man's arm. The sound cracked through the hallway, loud as a whip. "Go away," Daniel barked. His hand shook as he pushed harder, trying to shut out whatever truth lay on those papers. I had never seen him like that before. Afraid, truly afraid. The folder slipped, hitting the floor with a muffled thud. Dust puffed up from the carpet, and the faint smell of tobacco rose. My eyes locked on it, lying between us, too close to ignore. The man's footsteps faded down the porch, but the folder remained, heavy with questions. "Leave it," Daniel muttered, his voice low but trembling. His jaw twitched, and his eyes darted away. That reaction told me more than the folder itself. What was inside that could shake him this way? Why was Friday so important if the answer already lay at my feet? I bent slowly, my knees aching, but Daniel's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. His fingers dug into my skin, hard and unyielding. "Don't touch it," he hissed. The command stung more than his grip. Since when did my son order me in my own house? I pulled my arm free, the skin red where he had squeezed. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the folder between us like a forbidden fruit. My breath came fast, shallow. Could I defy him now, or would it cost me more than I was ready to pay? The clock on the wall ticked louder, each second a hammer in my chest. My mind spun. If I took the folder, what would I find? Proof? Betrayal? or worse, confirmation of his greed. My hand itched to grab it, but fear held me frozen. Not yet, I told myself. Not yet. Daniel bent quickly, scooping it up before I could move. He clutched it to his chest, his knuckles white, his lips pressed tight. "Forget this happened," he said, his voice flat. But the tremor in his words betrayed him. Something inside that folder mattered more than anything else. I remembered a winter years ago, when I sold my watch to buy him books. He had cried then, promising to make me proud. That memory cut through me now like a broken blade. Was this the same boy, or had greed rewritten him into a stranger? He carried the folder into his room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood in the hallway, the echo ringing in my ears like a warning bell. My chest ached with anger and sorrow. He thought he had shut me out, but he had only opened another door in my mind. The house grew quiet, too quiet. I heard only the faint hum of the refrigerator, steady and indifferent. My hands trembled as I pressed them against the table, steadying myself. I whispered, "What are you hiding, Daniel?" The question floated in the air, unanswered, but alive. I turned toward the window, the night outside thick and dark. A dog barked in the distance, sharp and restless. I thought of Anna again, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering in these walls. What would this house become for her if I failed to stop him? I poured a glass of water, the faucet squeaking as it turned. The water was cold, metallic on my tongue. I swallowed hard as though drinking courage. Friday was only days away, but the real deadline felt closer. Whatever hid in that folder was the key, and he knew it. The hallway light flickered, buzzing faintly. My heart raced. Could he be on the phone already, making arrangements, plotting behind my back? I pressed my ear to his door, hearing only muffled shuffling like paper sliding across wood. He was moving fast, too fast. I backed away, afraid he would catch me listening. My feet creaked on the old floorboards, each step betraying me. I returned to the kitchen, but the air felt heavy, suffocating. I clenched my fists, whispering to myself, "Wait, watch, gather. Delay is your only shield." The folder's image haunted me, its edge frayed and worn, its smell, faintly of tobacco, its weight, enough to bend his hands. What truth did it hold? And who was that man who delivered it? Why did his eyes carry such quiet urgency? I thought of calling the lawyer myself, but fear stopped me. What if Daniel had warned him? What if they worked together? My voice, my story, might be twisted into something ugly. No, I needed proof, not guesses. Proof hidden in that folder. The night dragged on, shadows shifting across the walls. Sleep never came. Every sound, the wind, the ticking clock, the creak of the house, felt like a whisper of warning. My body ached with exhaustion, but my mind would not rest. Friday loomed closer with every breath. I sat by the kitchen table until dawn, staring at the door to his room. My eyes burned, but my heart stayed sharp. He had something to lose, something he feared more than my defiance. That was my weapon, though I did not yet know how to use it. At sunrise he emerged, hair uncombed, eyes red. He carried the folder under his arm like a shield. He avoided my gaze but muttered, "Don't go anywhere today." His tone was more warning than request. And then he left, slamming the door behind him. The house shook with silence after his steps faded. I touched the table where the folder had rested, tracing the faint impression it had left on the wood. My heart clenched. He thought he had hidden the truth from me, but he had only exposed his fear. And just as I turned to clear the table, I saw it. A single page had slipped free, wedged between the chair and the wall. Its corner stuck out, yellowed and torn. My breath caught in my throat. I reached for it, hands trembling, ready to pull the secret into the light. The paper crinkled as I slid it free, the edge rough beneath my fingers. Dust clung to its corner, and the faint smell of tobacco rose again, the same scent that lingered on the folder. My chest tightened as I smoothed it flat on the table. The words were faded, typed on an old machine, uneven and scarred. A name jumped out, mine, followed by a date. Transfer effective Friday, 10 a.m. I felt my knees weaken, and I sank into the chair, the wood groaning under me. My throat was dry, each breath shallow, as though the page itself stole the air from the room. Daniel's handwriting scrawled in the margin, angry and hurried, "Do not delay." My hand trembled as I traced the ink. Why would he need to remind himself of urgency? What dangers circled him that he hadn't told me? A memory surged. Years ago, a winter storm had shattered the roof. I had worked all night under freezing rain, hammering shingles with numb fingers. so the children would not wake to a soaked bed. That roof still stood above us. And now he wanted me to sign it away, as if those nights had been nothing but wasted toil. My stomach turned. I folded the page once, hiding the words, then unfolded it again. I couldn't decide whether to keep it or destroy it. If he realized it was missing, his anger would scorch the house. Yet if I lost it, I would lose the one piece of evidence that had slipped through his control. My hand hovered, torn between fear and resolve. The morning light crept across the table, pale and cold. It lit the letters, making them sharper, undeniable. My eyes burned as I reread them, searching for a loophole, some mistake. But no, the date, the hour, the threat, it was all there, carved like a gravestone. My name, his signature, a deadline I had not chosen. The kettle whistled suddenly, shrill and piercing. I jumped, nearly tearing the page. My heart raced, the sound like a scream in the silence. I rushed to silence it, the steam burning my hand as I grabbed the handle. Pain shot up my arm, raw and sharp, pulling me back to the present. I pressed the burn under cold water, watching the skin redden. My reflection in the kitchen window startled me. My eyes were sunken, shadowed, like a man already defeated. Was this what he wanted? To wear me down until I signed without fight? A shiver ran down my spine. I folded the paper carefully and slid it into the pocket of my shirt. The fabric scratched my chest with every breath, a reminder of its weight. My heart beat against it, steady but heavy. I thought, if this page alone could shake him, then the folder must hold far worse. The front door creaked open, and Daniel's footsteps echoed in the hall. Panic surged through me. I pressed my palm over the pocket as if my body could shield the truth. He walked into the kitchen, hair still damp from a shower, his expression forced calm. "You didn't touch anything, did you?" His voice was too casual, too rehearsed. I swallowed hard. "No." My voice cracked, thin as paper. His eyes searched my face, then dropped to the table. He noticed the empty space where the folder had rested, his jaw tightening. Kept my hand steady on the counter, hiding the tremor. Would he see through me? He poured himself coffee, the spoon clinking against the cup, sharp and grating. The smell of burnt grounds filled the air, bitter and suffocating. He took a sip, wincing at the taste, then muttered, "Lawyer called. We can't afford mistakes." My stomach clenched. He said we, but the danger was his, not mine. I wanted to ask, what debt? What shadow hangs over you? But the words died in my throat. Fear chained me. If I revealed my knowledge too soon, he would strike harder. Better to wait, to let the truth slip from his own lips. Silence became my weapon. He glanced at the clock. It's ticking loud between us. 10 sharp, Dad. Don't be late. His tone carried both command and threat. He left the mug half full on the counter, dark liquid sloshing. Then he grabbed his jacket and stormed out, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. I exhaled only after his car roared away. My hand moved instinctively to my pocket, feeling the paper's edge through the fabric. The secret was mine now, however fragile. The question was, what could I do with it before Friday came? I sat at the table again, the page spread before me. My eyes caught a faint stamp in the corner, barely visible. It looked official, embossed, but smeared. I rubbed it gently, but the letters blurred further. Government, court, bank. The possibilities made my chest ache. I thought of calling Pastor Jim, who had guided me after my wife's death. His counsel was always steady. But then I imagined Daniel finding out, his fury boiling. Could I drag someone else into this fire? My hand hovered over the phone, then dropped back. Not yet. A shadow passed by the window. I froze. My heart thudded painfully. I stepped closer, peering through the lace curtain. A figure lingered near the fence, watching the house. Too far to see clearly, but still. Was it the man with the folder? Or someone sent to ensure my silence? The figure moved on, disappearing into the trees. Still, the image lingered. The page burned in my pocket, heavier with every minute. I whispered to myself, "They're watching." The words chilled me, making the walls feel thinner, the house less safe than ever. I pulled out the page again, studying Daniel's frantic scrawl. The words, "Do not delay," were underlined twice, pressed so hard the pen tore the paper. His fear was deeper than I thought. Fear can make a man reckless, dangerous. What had he entangled himself in that he now dragged me toward? The air smelled of damp wood and burnt coffee, a mix that turned my stomach. I pushed the cup away, its surface oily and dark. My hand trembled as I reached for the Bible on the shelf, not for answers, but for steadiness. The leather cover was cracked, the pages worn, a comfort I clung to. I thought of Anna's voice calling me Grandpa with a laugh like bells. If I lost the house, would I also lose her visits? Would Daniel's wife keep her away, erasing me from her childhood like he tried to erase my name from the deed? The thought twisted inside me, sharp and cruel. I stood, restless, pacing the kitchen. The floorboards creaked under my steps, each groan a reminder of years lived here. Every mark on the wall, every dent in the table told a story. How could I let him erase them with one stroke of a pen? The page fluttered in my hand, catching a draft from the open window. I pinned it down with my palm, afraid it would escape. My heart raced at the idea. If I lost it now, no one would believe me later. It was my only anchor against his lies. The afternoon sun slanted across the floor, dust dancing in the light. I sat again, weary but restless. My head ached, my hands cold. I told myself, wait for the right moment. He cannot guard every secret, not forever. Something else will slip. The house groaned as the wind shifted, and I thought of the knocks from last night. Who was that man? Was he ally or trap? His eyes had seemed honest, but I had been fooled before. I needed to know more before risking trust. I tucked the page deep into a drawer, beneath old receipts and letters. My hand lingered, reluctant to let it go, but I had to hide it from Daniel's eyes. I closed the drawer with a soft click, praying it would remain unnoticed. Then, just as the room settled into uneasy quiet, the phone rang. Its shrill cry sliced through the silence, loud and urgent. I reached for it, my hand trembling. On the other end, a voice I hadn't heard in years whispered my name. The voice was rough with age, yet unmistakable. "It's Margaret," she said, my late wife's cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to since the funeral. My grip tightened on the receiver, the cord twisting around my wrist. Her tone carried urgency, like a woman racing against her own breath. "Don't let Daniel trick you. He owes money. Serious money." I pressed the phone closer, the plastic warm against my cheek. My heart thudded as her words crawled into me. "How do you know?" I asked. The question felt heavy, dangerous. On the other end, I heard her exhale, shaky, like she was weighing what could be said aloud. Silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Finally, she whispered, "Friday, 10 a.m. They'll be there too, the debt collectors. If the house goes, it clears him." Her voice trembled, and I could almost picture her biting her lip, the way she always did when fear pressed in. My chest burned as the truth settled. He wasn't saving me. He was saving himself. The kitchen clock ticked louder, each second cruel. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The receiver's cord brushed my arm, cold and sticky from years of use. Margaret's voice grew sharper. "You mustn't sign. Promise me." But how could I promise anything when my own son stood against me? I closed my eyes, recalling Daniel as a boy, running barefoot across the yard, hair wild, laughter spilling. How could that boy become the man plotting to erase me? My throat tightened. A sob I couldn't release lodged deep inside. "I'll hold as long as I can," I said finally, though the words sounded weak. Margaret sighed, relief and fear tangled together. "I'll try to send something, proof. Look for it before Friday." Her words ended in a cough, deep and rattling. Then the line went dead, leaving only the faint buzz of silence. I lowered the receiver slowly, my hand numb. The room felt colder than before, shadows stretching across the floor. Proof? What proof? A letter? A document? Maybe something even heavier. I rubbed my chest, trying to calm the ache inside, but the ache only deepened with each breath. The truth was larger than the house now. It was survival. The smell of burnt coffee lingered bitter on my tongue. I pushed the mug away, watching the dark liquid ripple. My reflection stared back, eyes hollow, face drawn. I whispered, "What have you done, Daniel?" The question filled the kitchen, bouncing off the walls, returning to me unanswered. A sudden bang upstairs jolted me. My heart leapt, fear gripping me. I rushed to the staircase, each step creaking under my weight. Daniel's door was closed, but light spilled beneath it. Papers shuffled, quick and nervous, like a man hiding evidence. I froze, afraid he would hear me. The floor felt cold under my bare feet, the chill climbing my legs. I gripped the banister, its wood smooth from years of use. Should I confront him now, or retreat, wait for Margaret's proof? My mind tore itself in two. One path promised danger, the other delay. I chose silence again. I crept back down, each step careful, heart hammering. The living room clock struck noon, its chimes echoing like bells at a funeral. I sank into the old armchair, leather cracked, springs groaning. The chair had been my refuge, but now it felt like a trap, binding me with indecision. I reached for the drawer, pulling out the hidden page. Its creases had deepened, the words more fragile. I read again. Transfer effective Friday, 10 a.m. The letters blurred as tears filled my eyes. That hour was a knife pressing closer each moment. Could Margaret truly deliver proof in time? The window rattled as wind picked up, leaves scraping against the glass. The sound was sharp, grating, like fingernails on slate. I shivered, pulling my sweater tighter. The world outside felt hostile, as if nature itself turned witness to my struggle. My breath fogged the glass when I leaned closer. On the sidewalk, a car slowed, its engine low and steady. My stomach knotted as it lingered, headlights spilling over the porch. Then it moved on, but the fear remained. Were they watching already? Collectors waiting for Friday to pounce. Every sound outside became a threat. I pressed my forehead against the glass, cool and grounding. My reflection stared back, weary and lined. Was I strong enough to fight him? Fight them all? My hand shook, but inside me, a small flame stirred. If proof came, I would not go down quietly. The phone rang again, shrill and cutting. I jumped, nearly toppling the lamp. My hands fumbled with the receiver. Silence at first, then a click, and a voice too calm. "You'll regret resisting." The line went dead. My knees buckled, and I sank to the floor, the receiver dangling. The hum of the line buzzed against my ear, cold and lifeless. My skin prickled, every hair standing on end. That voice wasn't Margaret's, wasn't anyone I knew. They knew my number, my name, my fear. I replaced the receiver slowly, as though motion itself could summon danger. I stayed on the floor, back pressed to the wall, breathing hard. My heart felt ready to burst. The page still lay in my pocket, crumpled and damp with sweat. I pressed it flat against my chest, whispering, "Hold on." Whether I spoke to myself or the house, I didn't know. The radiator hissed, spitting heat that smelled of iron. I clung to the sound, grounding myself, but Daniel's footsteps overhead returned, steady and deliberate. My pulse raced. Did he know I had spoken with Margaret? Did he sense the page hidden away? Fear clawed at me. I rose slowly, legs heavy, and moved to the kitchen. The floor creaked, betraying every step. I poured water, the glass trembling in my hand. Each swallow was sharp, metallic, cutting my throat. I gripped the counter for balance. The house, once my fortress, now felt like enemy ground. I thought of Anna again. Her drawings taped to the fridge. Crayons scribbled suns and crooked flowers, her small handprints in paint. Would those be torn down once the deed changed hands? Would laughter vanish from these walls forever? Rage and sorrow mingled, searing my chest. The paper crinkled loudly as I pulled it from my pocket. I laid it on the table, staring hard. Proof, Margaret had promised. But what if it never came? What if this fragile page was all I had? My hand trembled as I pressed it flat. Daniel's door creaked open upstairs. His footsteps descended, slow and deliberate. Each step struck like a drumbeat, announcing judgment. I froze, breath caught, as his shadow stretched across the hallway. The page still lay on the table, exposed, vulnerable. His figure filled the doorway, eyes narrowing at me. He opened his mouth to speak, but then his gaze fell to the table. Silence stretched, sharp and suffocating. My heart stopped as his lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Dad," he said softly, almost too softly, "what's that doing there?" His eyes gleamed with suspicion, the room colder with every word. My body stiffened, trapped between truth and lies, each path edged with ruin. And just as I tried to form a reply, the front door rattled violently. 3 sharp knocks, splitting the air. Daniel turned his head, startled, his control cracked. Whoever waited outside carried the next piece of this puzzle, and I knew the moment I opened that door, everything would change. The knocks shook the door again, harder this time. Daniel spun toward it, his face pale but defiant. "Don't!" he hissed, his voice cracking. "Just stay put." His hand twitched, as though he might block me physically, but the sound of urgency outside was louder than his command. Whoever was there didn't plan to leave quietly. I brushed past him, the floor groaning under my steps. My hand touched the doorknob. It was cold, damp with the night's dew. The air carried a faint smell of rain-soaked soil drifting through the cracks. Daniel muttered behind me, "You'll regret this." His threat clung to my back like a shadow. When I pulled it open, a woman stood there, her coat dripping. She held a small box wrapped in brown paper, its corners worn, the tape peeling. Her eyes darted nervously toward the street before fixing on me. "He'll try to stop you," she said quickly, her breath visible in the chill. "This belongs to you." Daniel lunged forward, trying to slam the door, but I caught the box midair, the paper rough against my palms. The woman slipped away into the night without another word, her steps fading into puddles. The silence she left behind was sharp, like a cut. Daniel's face twisted, fury burning in his eyes. "Give it to me," he snapped, reaching for the box. His hand brushed mine, clammy and desperate. I stepped back, holding it to my chest, the paper scratching against my sweater. My pulse thundered. Whatever it was, he feared it more than he feared me. The box was light, too light for something so important. My fingers trembled as I ripped the tape, each tear loud, grating. Inside, wrapped in yellowed newspaper, lay a black notebook. Its leather cover was cracked, smelling of old dust and smoke. My breath caught as I opened it. Lines of numbers, names, and dates filled the pages, written in Daniel's sharp hand. Debt after debt, each figure larger than the last. My stomach churned as I traced the ink. These were no harmless loans. They belonged to men whose names I recognized from whispered warnings. This wasn't a ledger. It was a death sentence. Daniel grabbed for it, his nails scratching my arm. "You don't understand." His voice was shrill, panic breaking through. My hands clutched the book tighter, the leather rough against my skin. "Explain then," I demanded, though my voice shook. For once, I forced him into silence. He stepped back, chest heaving, sweat gleaming on his forehead. His eyes darted to the clock. "It has to be cleared by Friday. If not, they'll come here." His words spilled out like broken glass. The truth at last. Not inheritance, not duty, just fear of men closing in. I felt the room tilt, my head swimming. The notebook's weight pressed against my chest like a stone. He was willing to sell me out, to sell the house, to erase me, just to cover his debts. My own son. My knees wobbled, rage and grief colliding in my veins. The refrigerator hummed, oblivious as I stared at him. "You'd trade my life's work for your mistakes?" I whispered. He lowered his gaze, lips tight. That silence cut deeper than any words. He didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. I turned another page. One entry bore today's date, circled twice. The number beside it was monstrous, larger than anything else. My breath came short, harsh. He wasn't just in debt. He was drowning, and he planned to drag me under with him. "Dad, please," he said suddenly, softer, almost broken. His voice cracked, boyish for a moment. "If you don't sign, they'll come for me, for us." His hands trembled as he reached toward me, not to grab, but to beg. My heart lurched, torn between fury and pity. I slammed the notebook shut, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet. His head jerked, startled. I shoved it into the drawer beside the torn page, the wood creaking as it closed. My hand lingered on the handle, daring him to try. He didn't. He only stared, trembling. The light flickered overhead, buzzing like an angry wasp. Shadows stretched across his face, carving him into something harsher, less human. "They'll kill me," he whispered, barely audible. His fear was raw, but it did not erase his betrayal. My jaw clenched. My choice was not simple. I leaned against the counter, my body heavy. "Then tell the truth," I said. "Stop hiding." But his eyes slid away, refusing to meet mine. The silence that followed was thick, poisonous. He would rather destroy me than face them himself. That truth froze me. A car horn blared outside, long and impatient. Daniel flinched, his shoulders jerking. He darted to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough. His lips moved soundlessly, eyes wide. I saw the reflection of headlights cutting across his face. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. My heart hammered as I listened to the low rumble of an engine idling. The sound seeped into the walls, steady and menacing. The house felt surrounded, like prey caught in a snare. I whispered to myself, "They've already come." The words tasted of ash. Daniel turned, panic blazing. "Don't open that door again, do you hear me?" His voice cracked, rising with desperation. But I heard more than fear in him. I heard guilt. He wasn't just afraid of them. He was afraid of what I might uncover before they forced his hand. The ledger burned in my thoughts, its numbers etched behind my eyes. Proof, Margaret had promised. And here it was. Enough to sink him, maybe enough to save me. But if they knew I had it, what then? My hand trembled at the thought. The car engine roared louder, closer, then cut abruptly. Silence fell heavy, smothering. Daniel stepped back from the window, his face drained of color. His lips parted as though to speak, but no words came. The ticking of the clock filled the room, mocking. I gripped the counter, nails biting into wood. The notebook, the page, the deadline, each piece weighed on me, pulling me under. Could I withstand until Friday? Or would the house be breached before then? My mind raced, searching for cracks in their hold. Daniel sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook, whether from rage or fear I couldn't tell. For the first time, he looked small, broken, and yet he was still the boy who betrayed me. Compassion wavered, but fury held stronger. The silence shattered with a new sound. 3 slow steps on the porch. The boards creaked, deliberate, heavy. Daniel's head shot up, his eyes wide, his breath ragged. Whoever had come was no messenger. They wanted inside. The doorknob turned once, then rattled hard. My blood froze. Daniel leapt to his feet, pale and frantic. The door shook under the weight of the hand outside. My chest clenched. My mind screamed one thought. When that door opened, our last defense would fall. The rattling grew harsher, each jolt making the old frame groan. My breath caught as shadows slid under the crack, long and deliberate. Daniel's face was chalk white, sweat trickling from his temple. "Don't answer," he whispered, voice breaking. "Please, don't." His plea was weaker than any command he had ever given. But the door shook again, louder, stronger. Whoever was outside wasn't leaving. My heart pounded, each thud loud as a drum in the silence. I thought of the ledger, the torn page, the promise of Friday. Could I keep the house safe when danger already pressed its weight into the wood? A low voice came from the porch, muffled but clear. 10 a.m., Friday. No excuses. The words chilled the air, seeping through the cracks. Daniel flinched, his knees buckling as though struck. My skin prickled, every hair standing. They knew the hour. They owned the hour. I stepped closer, my feet heavy on the floorboards. "Who are you?" I called, my voice shaking but loud. Silence followed, thick and merciless. Then came 3 slow knocks, steady as a death toll. My hand hovered near the lock, frozen. Daniel grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. "Dad, don't!" His voice was high, raw with panic. His nails dug into my sleeve, trembling. He looked more like a boy than a man, cornered and afraid. My throat tightened with rage and pity tangled together. How could he drag me into this storm, then beg me to shield him? The porch fell silent. Only the ticking clock and Daniel's shallow breathing filled the room. My eyes darted to the window, but the yard was empty. No car, no figure, nothing. A phantom, or worse, someone watching from the dark. My chest burned with dread. Daniel staggered back, running a hand through his hair. "They won't wait, Dad. If it's not signed by Friday, they'll—" He stopped, swallowing hard, his eyes darting to the floor. His silence said more than words. My stomach clenched at the unspoken violence. I turned to the kitchen table, the ledger still hidden in the drawer. My fingers twitched to pull it out, to wave it in his face. But not yet. If I revealed my hand now, he would only twist, deny, beg. Better to let his fear cook him alive. The refrigerator hummed, steady and indifferent. Its buzz grounded me. I thought of Anna's drawings still taped to the door. Pink suns, crooked flowers, her tiny scrawl. Could I let these walls fall into the hands of men who spoke in ultimatums? The thought hollowed me. "Dad," Daniel said suddenly, voice breaking, "just sign it. Save us both." His words cracked, fragile, but his eyes betrayed calculation. Was it fear or manipulation? My chest burned with the question. I wanted to strike the answer from him, but I stayed still. I moved toward the window again. The air smelled faintly of rain-soaked earth, cold and sharp. I pressed my forehead against the glass, my breath fogging it. Outside, the world looked calm, deceptively so. Inside, everything cracked like thin ice under weight. The phone rang, shrill and piercing. Daniel jumped, his eyes wide. He lunged for it, but I was faster, snatching the receiver. A pause, then a voice, smooth, controlled. "Friday, 10 a.m., or we collect what's owed." My blood froze. Before I could reply, the line went dead. The dial tone buzzed, harsh in my ear. I set the phone down slowly, my fingers numb. Daniel collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders shook, whether from shame or terror I couldn't tell. My body trembled, but my mind sharpened. I thought of Margaret's words, proof before Friday. If it arrived, maybe I could stand against them. But what if it didn't? Could I fight shadows with nothing but memory and rage? My throat ached with the weight of questions unanswered. Daniel looked up, eyes red, wet with unshed tears. "You don't know what they'll do," he whispered. "They're not like us." His voice cracked. Fear poured from him, real and raw, yet even then I felt no sympathy. He had chosen this path, and he wanted me to pay its toll. The clock struck 1, its chime hollow, echoing through the house. Time marched, indifferent, dragging me closer to the appointed hour. My hands clenched into fists. Could I outlast them until then? Could I turn their own trap into mine? I stood pacing, the floorboards creaking beneath me. My mind replayed every detail, the ledger's ink, the torn page, the voice on the line. Each piece was a stone. Together they built a wall, but would it hold when Friday dawned? The lamp flickered, shadows jumping across the walls. Daniel muttered under his breath, rocking in the chair. His words blurred, broken phrases. "Can't lose, must pay, they'll kill me." My skin crawled listening to him unravel. He was slipping piece by piece. The kitchen smelled of stale bread and burnt coffee, heavy in the air. I swallowed hard, the bitterness coating my tongue. Each breath felt harder, heavier. My body ached, but my mind would not rest. Friday loomed closer with every inhale. I pulled open the drawer, my hands shaking. The ledger's cracked leather stared up at me, accusing. I pressed it flat on the table, the pages open to the debts, the names. Daniel's breath hitched, his face pale. "Destroy it," he begged. His voice cracked like dry wood. I shook my head slowly. "Not yet." My voice was low but firm. His face twisted with desperation, rage boiling beneath. He slammed his fist on the table, the sound sharp, echoing. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. Silence stretched, heavy and thick. Only the hum of the refrigerator broke it. I thought of the sheriff's office just 3 streets away. Should I take this ledger there? Would they listen, or laugh, or worse, hand it back to Daniel? Doubt gnawed at me. The floor creaked upstairs. Both of us froze. Another presence? My blood ran cold. Slowly, I lifted my eyes toward the ceiling. Each groan of wood was measured, deliberate, not the sound of settling beams. Someone else was here. Daniel's face drained of color. He whispered, "They're inside." His words were thin, trembling, and they sliced through me. My chest tightened, breath shallow. I gripped the ledger harder, its leather digging into my palm. The next sound was clear. Footsteps, slow and heavy, moving across the hallway above. My heart hammered each beat, painful. Daniel backed against the wall, eyes wide, lips trembling. We were no longer alone. And then the unmistakable creak of the staircase followed, each step deliberate, closer, louder. Whoever had entered the house was coming straight for us. The creaks grew louder, one after the other, like a clock ticking down. My palms were slick with sweat, the ledger clutched so tightly that the cracked leather cut into my skin. Daniel pressed against the wall, his breath shallow and fast. His lips moved without sound, prayers or curses, I couldn't tell which. I stared at the staircase, my heart pounding with every groan of the wood. A shadow stretched across the landing, long and heavy. My chest tightened as a man appeared, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothes. His boots thudded on the steps, steady, unhurried, the air filled with the smell of wet leather and smoke. As he descended, my throat burned as if the smell itself choked me. Daniel whispered, "It's him." The words were so soft I almost missed them. His eyes were wide, wet with terror. The man paused on the 5th step, his hand resting on the railing. He looked at us, calm, controlled, and then smiled faintly. That smile was colder than any shout. He reached the bottom, boots tapping against the floor. "Friday," he said simply, his voice low and gravelly like stones grinding. His eyes shifted to the table where the ledger lay open. His smile faded. "You've been reading." Daniel lunged forward, blocking his line of sight. "It's handled," he stammered, his voice trembling. His hands shook as he spread them wide, as though trying to shield me. But his act fooled no one. The man's eyes slid back to me, sharp as knives. "Old man," he said, voice steady, "signing fixes everything. 10 sharp. Don't test me." His words were not shouted, yet they carried the weight of a hammer. My stomach lurched as his gaze bore into me. I wanted to answer, but my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. He stepped closer, the floor creaking under his weight. His coat brushed against the chair, leaving a faint trail of dampness. The smell of smoke clung to him, thick, suffocating. Daniel swallowed audibly, his Adam's apple bobbing like a trapped fish. My body ached to move, but I froze. Then his hand slammed down on the table, inches from the ledger. The wood rattled, the pages fluttering. "If this isn't resolved by Friday," he said, slow and deliberate, "we take more than paper." His knuckles were scarred, skin rough like stone. My breath came fast and shallow. Daniel's voice cracked. "He'll sign." He glanced at me, pleading, almost commanding. His eyes begged me to confirm, to yield. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. The silence stretched. I said nothing. The man studied me for a long moment, his eyes dark, unblinking. Then, with a smirk, he straightened. 10 sharp, he repeated, turning toward the stairs. His boots echoed as he climbed, each step heavy, deliberate. The sound of his retreat felt almost worse than his arrival. We listened until the upstairs door slammed shut. The wall seemed to sigh with relief, though the air remained heavy, poisoned. Daniel collapsed into the chair, his face buried in his hands. His shoulders shook with shallow sobs. I stared at the ledger, heart pounding. My hand hovered over it, torn. If I destroyed it now, maybe the threat would weaken. But what if it was the only proof I had against Daniel? My mind churned, desperate for direction. I left it where it lay, the leather faintly damp from his touch. The clock struck 2, its chimes hollow and cruel. Daniel lifted his head, eyes bloodshot. "You don't understand," he muttered. His voice was cracked, almost childlike. "If you don't sign, it's not just me. It's you. It's Anna." The name hit me like a fist. I shot to my feet, rage burning. "Leave her out of this." My voice tore from my throat louder than I intended. Daniel flinched, shrinking back. His lips trembled, but no words came. For once, he was the child, and I was the father who would not yield. The ledger called to me again. I flipped to another page, my eyes racing over the ink. A name jumped out, a neighbor's, one I knew. My chest burned. This web stretched wider than Daniel. The man upstairs had his claws deep into our town. I shut it quickly, the sound sharp in the silence. My hands shook. "Proof," I whispered to myself, Margaret's promise ringing in my ears. Could she know about this? Could she send something stronger than ink on paper? I prayed she could, though doubt gnawed at me. Daniel stood suddenly pacing the room. His footsteps were quick, erratic, unlike the heavy rhythm of the man upstairs. His hands pulled at his hair, his breaths ragged. "We can't fight them," he said over and over like a mantra. His words made the walls feel closer, tighter. The lamp flickered again, shadows leaping across his face. He looked broken, twisted by fear. My heart ached, yet rage held steady. How many choices had he made before reaching this point? How many lies had he told himself before deciding to sell me out? The house groaned with each gust of wind outside. The windows rattled, the floor shivered. I stood still, every sense sharp, waiting for another sound from upstairs. None came. Silence weighed heavy, too heavy, like a predator crouched in the dark. Daniel stopped pacing, eyes locking on me. "You have to choose," he said, voice hoarse. "Sign, or we're all finished." His words shook, but they still struck like a blow. My throat tightened. Was this desperation, or one more manipulation? I turned from him, staring at the family photos on the wall. My wife's smile, frozen in time. My children younger, innocent, still believing in promises I'd made. The images burned into me. Could I betray her memory by handing this house to strangers? My hand drifted back to the ledger, fingertips brushing the cracked leather. The smell of smoke rose again, faint but suffocating. I whispered, "Not yet." Daniel's eyes widened, disbelief twisting his face. He slammed his fist on the wall, plaster cracking. The ceiling groaned suddenly, one long creak. My breath caught, eyes snapping upward. Daniel froze, his fist still pressed to the wall. The sound lingered, then faded. The man upstairs hadn't left. He was waiting, listening, watching us crumble. The silence thickened, pressing down like a weight. I sat slowly, gripping the ledger tight. Daniel lowered himself opposite me, his eyes hollow, defeated. Between us lay the book, the page, the deadline, each one a chain, each one dragging us closer to Friday. Then the floor above cracked sharply like a gunshot. Dust rained from the ceiling, fine and gray. Daniel leapt up, fear etched across his face. My pulse hammered, breath sharp. The man upstairs had moved again. He was still here, and he would not wait forever. The ceiling groaned again, each creak dragging dread deeper into my chest. Dust floated in the lamp's glow, dancing like ashes. Daniel clutched his head, muttering under his breath, "He won't leave, he won't leave." His words came fast, wild, like a prayer gone rotten. I gripped the ledger tighter, its cracked leather biting into my palm. Then silence. Thick, suffocating silence. The house held its breath, and so did we. My ears rang, waiting for the next step. Nothing came. Daniel slowly lowered his hands, his eyes darting to me, then to the ceiling. He whispered, "He's waiting for an answer." I turned toward the clock on the wall. Its ticking grew louder, sharper, as if mocking me. 2:30. Each second was a chain, dragging me closer to Friday. My throat ached. Could one signature really silence this storm, or would it only feed it? The kitchen smelled of burnt dust from the radiator, metallic and dry. My tongue tasted bitter, like copper. I leaned against the counter, bones heavy. "You put us here," I muttered. My voice cracked, but it carried. Daniel flinched, his face twisting. He stepped forward, fists clenched, voice trembling. "I did it for survival." The words rang hollow, echoing in the space between us. His survival, never mine. His eyes darted toward the ledger again, hungry, desperate. He wanted it destroyed, but he didn't dare touch it now. The refrigerator clicked on, its hum filling the silence. I stared at the photos taped to its door. Anna's crooked smile, my wife's calm eyes. My vision blurred, hot with tears I refused to let fall. They deserved better than threats whispered in their home. Daniel's breath came ragged, fast. "Dad, if you don't sign, they'll take it out on all of us." His voice cracked on the last word, breaking. He stepped closer, lowering his tone. "Please." But behind the plea I heard it, the same pressure, the same command. My hand slammed the table. The sound cracked the air, loud and final. "Enough!" The word echoed, startling even me. Daniel recoiled, his mouth opening and closing like a fish, gasping. For the first time, he seemed small, truly small, before me. I opened the ledger again, pages whispering like dry leaves, names, dates, numbers, all bleeding with his desperation. My finger stopped on one, circled twice, a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 9 o'clock, at the old courthouse. My stomach tightened. Another deadline, another trap. Daniel saw where my eyes landed and froze. "Don't go there," he whispered. His voice was sharp with fear, sharper than any command. That alone told me the truth. I had to. My pulse quickened. Perhaps the page held more than debts. Perhaps it held escape. The wind rattled the windows, whistling through cracks in the frame. The house moaned like an old ship in a storm. I pressed the ledger closed, the sound like a seal. My jaw tightened. "I'll see for myself," I said. Daniel shook his head violently, his hair damp with sweat. "You'll get yourself killed," he snapped, voice breaking. He slammed his fist into the wall again, plaster flaking onto the floor. His chest heaved, eyes wild. "You don't know these men." His words rang with panic, but panic laced with guilt. I turned away from him, staring at the clock again. 2:45. The seconds dragged slower now, heavy, each one pressing into my skull. The ledger lay under my hand, pulsing with danger, but also with power. My mind raced. If Margaret's proof came before tomorrow, I could stand stronger. Daniel paced the floor, muttering to himself. His shoes scuffed the wood, quick, nervous. He looked less like a son and more like a man unraveling thread by thread. I wondered, had he already sold pieces of himself before selling me? The thought hollowed my chest. The lamp flickered again, shadows leaping across the walls. His shadow seemed larger than him, looming, monstrous. Mine, smaller but steady. I clenched my fists, whispering, "I will not break." The words felt foreign on my lips, yet they steadied me. The radiator hissed again, filling the room with the smell of iron and dust. I coughed, the taste bitter. Daniel stopped pacing, staring at me, his eyes bloodshot. "Dad, listen," he said slowly, carefully. "If you go tomorrow, you'll never come back." I studied him, the way his hands twitched, the way his voice shook. He wasn't warning me for my sake. He was warning me because it would unravel his plan. My chest burned as the realization settled. He feared exposure more than death. I leaned closer, voice low. "Then let them come." His face twisted, rage and fear colliding. He slammed the table, rattling the ledger. His voice rose, sharp and broken. "You're going to ruin us." His words cracked the air, but I didn't flinch. The phone rang again, sudden and shrill. Both of us jumped. Daniel lunged, but I caught it first, pressing the receiver to my ear. Silence. Then a voice, calm and precise. "Tomorrow, 9 sharp. Courthouse. Don't be late." The line clicked dead. The dial tone hummed, loud and empty. I lowered the phone slowly, my hand trembling. Daniel's face drained of color, his mouth falling open. His legs buckled, and he dropped into the chair, eyes wide. The summons was set. There was no running now. I placed the receiver back on the hook, the click loud in the silence. My chest rose and fell, heavy with fear, but steadier than before. Tomorrow would decide everything. The courthouse, 9 sharp. A new battlefield, one I had not chosen, but one I could not refuse. Daniel buried his face in his hands again, his body shaking. His voice came muffled, broken. "You'll destroy us all." I stared at him, my jaw tight. No, he had already done that. I was only fighting to salvage what remained. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters. The house groaned, siding creaking under the pressure. I stared at the ceiling, listening for more footsteps. None came. The man upstairs had left, or perhaps he only waited in silence. Either way, tomorrow loomed larger than him. The ledger sat on the table, pages still fluttering slightly, as if stirred by a breath no one could see. I closed it, pressing my palm to the leather. My body trembled, but my resolve hardened. Tomorrow, 9 sharp, the truth would meet daylight. And as the clock struck 3, its hollow chimes echoing, I whispered to myself, "Let them come." My voice was steady now, sharper than before, yet inside, fear coiled tight, ready to strike. Then came a sound I hadn't expected. 3 quick knocks at the back door. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes wild. My breath caught. Whoever sought entry this time wasn't waiting for Friday or tomorrow. They had come sooner, and they wanted in now. The knocks came again, quicker, sharper. My spine stiffened as the sound echoed through the kitchen tiles. Daniel rose halfway from his chair, then sank back down, pale as chalk. "Don't," he whispered, voice shaken. "Not this time." But the urgency in those knocks clawed at my chest. Whoever stood there wasn't a ghost. They carried answers, or ruin. The air grew colder, a draft slipping under the back door. It carried the scent of damp earth and rust, heavy and metallic. I clenched the ledger in one hand, my nails biting into the cracked leather. Slowly, I moved toward the sound, each step creaking on the floorboards. Daniel groaned behind me. "Dad, please." The door rattled once more. I pulled it open, bracing myself. A man stood there, small, wiry, a cap pulled low. His coat was torn, his hand stained with ink. He clutched a thin envelope, its corner bent, the paper smudged with dirt. "For you," he said, thrusting it forward. His eyes darted nervously, then he vanished into the night without another word. The envelope trembled in my grip, damp from his touch. Daniel shot to his feet, eyes wide. "Give it here," he demanded, stepping closer, his voice cracking. I shook my head slowly, pressing the envelope against my chest. The paper was thin, but its weight was heavy, heavy as judgment. I tore it open with shaky fingers. Inside was a photocopy, grainy and dark. Words leapt out. Deed transfer agreement. And beneath them, Daniel's signature, dated last week. My vision blurred, hot tears stinging. He had already signed. He had already sold what was not his to sell. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came. His hands twitched at his sides, fists clenching, unclenching, his face twisted, first in rage, then in shame. He whispered finally, "I had no choice." The words fell hollow, thinner than paper. My body shook with anger. I slammed the document on the table, the sound sharp, final. "No choice," I spat, my voice breaking. "You had a choice when you forged my name." Daniel flinched as though struck, his eyes wet. He reached for the page, but I slapped his hand away. The lamp flickered, shadows leaping across the walls. The photocopy rustled under the draft, edges curling. My heart pounded as I read the fine print. Friday wasn't a deadline. It was the day they would claim possession, the house, the land, everything. Unless I stood against it, all would be gone. Daniel's voice rose, desperate. "You don't understand. If I didn't sign, they'd take me. They'd take Anna." His words choked, his chest heaving. My fists shook. "Don't you dare drag her into this," I snapped, fury lacing every word. His silence was answer enough. He already had. The clock struck 4, its chimes harsh, cutting. Each strike rang like a countdown, dragging me closer to an end I hadn't chosen. My body ached, old bones weary, but my spirit blazed hotter. Proof was in my hand now, undeniable. His betrayal, ink on paper. I held the copy high, waving it before him. "This is the truth you feared. This is what you hid." Daniel staggered back, shaking his head. "They'll kill us both if you expose it." His voice was raw, begging. But inside me, something hardened. Better truth than slow death in silence? The refrigerator hummed again, indifferent, steady. I stared at Anna's drawings taped beside it. Crooked hearts, shaky letters spelling Grandpa. My throat tightened. For her, I would not fold. For her, I would face them all. My voice came low, steady. This ends with me standing, not bowing. Daniel sagged into the chair, his body limp. His hands covered his face, muffling his sobs. The sound grated, sharp as knives. For the first time, pity slipped through my fury, but I crushed it. Pity had built this trap. Now proof would dismantle it. I folded the copy carefully, sliding it into the ledger. The leather creaked, swallowing it whole. Together, they formed a weapon, not of fists, but of truth. My hand lingered on it, steadying myself. Friday's courtroom would not see me empty-handed. Daniel looked up, his face blotched red. If you walk in there, they'll tear you apart. His words shook, but they were lined with terror. I met his eyes, voice low. Let them try. For the first time, he had no reply. His lips trembled, but silence consumed him. A sharp noise broke the air, the back window rattling. I turned quickly. Outside, headlights swept the yard, bright, intrusive. A car idled, engine low and threatening. Daniel froze, his body rigid. My heart raced. They had returned, circling us like wolves. The engine revved once, sharp, then cut. Silence fell heavy, but it was the silence of hunters waiting. My chest ached with every breath. They knew the truth was in my hands now. They wouldn't wait for Friday quietly. The kitchen smelled of cold iron and damp paper, bitter and raw. I pressed my palm to the ledger, whispering to myself, "Hold steady." The words were soft, but they anchored me. My pulse slowed, steady as the clocks tick. I was no longer cornered. I was prepared. Daniel shifted, his voice weak. "Dad, you can't fight them." His words shook, but my reply was firm. "I already am." He stared at me as though seeing a stranger. Perhaps he was. Perhaps he had never known what strength lay in the man he called father. The lamp buzzed, flickering again. Shadows crawled across the walls, long and jagged. My own shadow fell tall, stretching over the table, over the ledger. For the first time, it felt stronger than his. I stood, pushing the chair back. Its legs scraped against the floor, loud, grating. Daniel flinched at the sound. My body was tired, but my voice was sharp. "Tomorrow, 9 sharp. Courthouse. I'll bring the truth." The air itself seemed to shiver at the words. He tried to rise, but his knees buckled. His voice cracked, pleading, "Don't do this." I didn't answer. I only walked to the drawer, tucking the ledger deep inside, the wood creaking as it closed. My decision was sealed. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters. I stared at the dark window, my reflection faint, lined and weary. But my eyes burned with resolve. Proof was mine. The deadline was theirs. And then, just as silence thickened, a new sound cut through. The front door opening slowly, hinges groaning. Daniel's head snapped up, his face ashen. My pulse raced. Whoever entered this time carried the next strike, and neither of us had time left to run. The front door creaked wider, its hinges screaming like an old wound. A draft rushed in, cold and sharp, carrying the faint smell of tobacco and wet asphalt. I froze, hand on the drawer where the ledger rested. Daniel clutched the table, his knuckles white, his lips trembling. A figure stepped into the dim light of the hallway. Boots echoed on the floorboards, measured, unhurried, each step louder than the last. The man from before, broad-shouldered and calm, appeared in the doorway. His coat glistened with rain, drops falling onto the rug, darkening the fibers. His eyes locked on mine. Steady, unblinking. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice low, final. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "The courthouse," I answered, surprising even myself. My voice was steady, though my body trembled. His gaze narrowed, his lips curling faintly. "Then you've chosen war." The words fell heavy, cutting the air like a blade. Daniel sprang up, desperation spilling. "He'll sign. Don't listen to him." His voice cracked, high, pleading, but the man ignored him, his eyes fixed on me. The silence between us was sharper than any threat. My chest tightened, but I didn't look away. The man stepped closer, the smell of smoke growing stronger, invading the kitchen. His shadow stretched across the wall, swallowing Daniel's smaller frame. He leaned close, his breath hot with ash. 9 sharp. If you falter, you lose everything, including blood." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. "Then I'll bring everything," I whispered. His eyes widened slightly, surprised, then narrowed again. He studied me like a predator, gauging prey that dared to bare its teeth. Then he stepped back, calm as ever. Daniel collapsed against the chair, his body sagging. "Please," he muttered, voice breaking, "don't do this." His words spilled useless into the room, ignored by the man and by me. Pity stirred for a moment, but I crushed it with resolve. Pity had no place tomorrow. The clock struck 5, its chimes harsh, echoing. Time marched closer, indifferent to my fear. My bones ached, my lungs burned, but my will sharpened with each strike. I had lived through storms before, nights of hunger, winters of labor. This would be no different. The man moved to the door, his boots thudding softly. He paused, turning his head slightly. 9 sharp. Courtroom 2B. His voice was steady, almost casual. Then he disappeared into the night, the door shutting behind him with a final click. Silence settled like ash. Daniel exhaled a broken sob, his shoulders shaken. "You'll get us all killed." His voice cracked, raw. I stared at him, my jaw tight. "No, son, you already did." The words tasted of iron, bitter and true. His face twisted, but he didn't deny it. The air smelled of damp paper, the envelope still open on the table. I slid it into the ledger, closing the drawer with a firm push. The wood groaned, as though burdened by the weight of truth. My palm lingered on it, my pulse steady. Proof was mine now. I moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The street was empty, wet under the glow of the lamp. No car, no figure, nothing. Yet the silence felt watched, as though unseen eyes lingered. My breath fogged the glass, fading into the dark. Daniel slumped lower, his head in his hands. "Dad, I was just trying to survive," he whispered. His voice carried shame, fear, and something close to regret. My chest ached, but the wound ran too deep for healing now. Survival had cost him his soul. I remembered nights patching the roof alone, the hammer heavy in frozen hands. I remembered skipping meals so he and his sister could eat. Sacrifices carved into my bones. And here he was, ready to erase it all with one forged stroke. My jaw clenched with rage. The refrigerator clicked off, leaving the house in deeper silence. I could hear my own breath, ragged but steady. The storm outside had passed, but the storm inside these walls had only grown. Tomorrow, it would break open in public light. Daniel raised his head slowly, his eyes wet, swollen. "If you walk into that courthouse, they'll destroy you." His voice was low, trembling. I met his gaze, voice steady. "Not if I destroy their lives first." His lips parted, but no reply came. The lamp flickered, then steadied, its glow dim. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, long and jagged. My own shadow stretched over the wall, taller, firmer. For the first time, I didn't feel small in my own house. I sat, pulling the ledger from the drawer again. Its leather was cracked, edges frayed, but its pages were sharp weapons now. I pressed the torn copy inside, aligning it with Daniel's name. My heart steadied. This was the chain of proof Margaret promised. The clock ticked, steady, each second sharp as a nail. Dawn wasn't far. I would not sleep tonight. I would not falter. My chest burned with fear, but also with fire. For the first time, hope stirred with the fear, tangled together. Daniel stood unsteady, his voice hoarse. "You'll regret it." His words were faint, brittle. I looked at him, my face hard. "No, Daniel, you will." His eyes dropped, shame and rage flickering in them like dying embers. The wind moaned against the shutters, soft and low. The house creaked, its old bones holding steady. I felt its strength in my own body, tired but unbroken. Tomorrow I would stand for it or fall with it, but I would not surrender it. I rose slowly, tucking the ledger under my arm. Daniel didn't move, didn't stop me. He only sat, hollow and small, staring at the floor. My chest ached at the sight, but I walked past him without pause. The hallway was dim, the photos on the wall pale in the weak light. My wife's smile, my children's faces, Anna's laughter frozen in crayon drawings. I touched one frame lightly, my fingers trembling. "For you," I whispered. The front door stood closed, the air around it cold. Tomorrow it would open again, not to threats whispered in shadows, but to light, to witnesses, to truth. My body shook, but my will did not. I turned back to Daniel once more. His face was hidden, his shoulders slumped. I whispered, steady and sharp, "Tomorrow decides everything." He didn't answer. Silence swallowed him. And as the clock struck 6, its chimes echoing through the hollow rooms, I clutched the ledger tighter. My heart thudded like a drum, each beat marking the path toward morning. The courthouse awaited, and with it, the last word.